Hi, Dhritiraj.
Hello, Nelson.
So, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I hope you're well.
Oh, I'm good, thank you. And thank you for agreeing to do this on Echoes.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
so, as you know, it's a project aimed at the youth to spike their interest in different career fields. And yours is actually a very interesting one that I'm excited to discover.
Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. I'm a physical geographer. Originally from India, from northeast of India, from a state called Assam. And I look at issues such as sea level rise and coastal flooding and how people are impacted by those climatic changes.
Okay. So, tell me more about this job. You told me you are a climatic geographer, right?
Yeah, a physical geographer. Yes, I look at climate change overall.
Okay. So, what does that entail? Like, how does this impact people in general?
So in terms of, I'm very much into education. I think there's a huge need for people to know and make people aware of the kind of issues. For example, the country where you are from are very much at the front line of sea level rise and
Yeah.
coastal flooding. And so I work with researchers and people around the world to look at what could be the impact of coastal flooding and how common people might be impacted or displaced due to future climate change and sea level rise.
Okay. Yeah, because climate change is something very real and happening right now, right? And the impact is quite dangerous, I might say.
It is quite widespread, and especially because now very slowly I am transferring my field of study to island nations, and so I'm very interested in Maldives, Mauritius, um, all these island nations, and how they are going to cope with sea level rise. So one of the research which I do, it's very multidisciplinary, which involves civil engineering, social studies, in order to understand the impact of climate change, because it's not just one subject, it deals with a lot of different, it's very multidisciplinary.
Oh, that's brilliant. So what you're doing right now will have a direct impact on island life and, like you said, especially Mauritius, in how we are coping with climate change.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly. So like it's very important for the youth of the country to actually know what are the risks climate change may pose, and to really study this in depth to understand the kind of implications which it might have.
Okay. So how did you actually start your career?
So I'm currently a researcher. My job role is basically to perform research. I use satellite images to do that. I use a lot of geographic information system to do that. And I ended up doing this by actually having a degree in geography. So I have a master's and a bachelor's in geographical sciences. And then I came to China, Shanghai, to pursue my PhD in coastal land reclamation, and that's how I finished my PhD. I ended up getting a job during the pandemic as a
Oh,
researcher in the same institute where I did my PhD.
okay. So talking about your education, actually, your educational background, let's say in high school, for example. So what did you study specifically so that you could pick your degree?
I think in high school, it I was in humanities. I didn't ever study science, or although I'm doing a hardcore science now, I had to do everything by myself now. But I did humanities. In humanities, when you do, you have social studies, you have political science, and geography as well as a humanities subject. So I did that, but it was a combination of both human and physical geography. And I was able to bring that understand the bridge between social science and pure sciences. And that kind of helped me to realize that I want to be in a very multidisciplinary sector, and geography is a subject which you can actually do it.
So would you say that studying humanities at high school level does not necessarily hinder your chances of pure science later on at the university?
It definitely depends. It's obviously you have to kind of, if you are shifting in midway like I did from humanities to science, you have to gain some skills of science as well. I mean, of course, the degree in humanities help, but then to understand the things, the core thing about mathematics, which you need that, because after all, everything, it's about numbers, climate change, how many people die, whatever property happens, all about numbers. So getting a good solid idea of maths, even in psychology, you need that kind of statistical background as well. So although psychology falls into humanities in some institutions, so there is always a bridge which you can build completely dependent on your own interest.
Yeah, definitely. So education aside, what abilities and personal attributes would you say are essential to succeed in your field?
I think in my field, the first thing would be communications. It's very important to talk. It's very important to communicate your curiosity, your interests, and not to keep within yourself and just with the internet and search. I think people to people connection is very important. So make sure in my field as well. I mean, climate change is a huge issue, is only because of the fact that we are not able to communicate this properly across different levels and across different disciplines. So I think first skill in a very normal sense would be communications. And after that, a lot of soft skills and others which you will eventually gain will be helpful.
Oh, that's good. So of course, soft skills are important across every field, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, our inability to communicate about climate change is what has impacted us today in a severe way. We have the climate change. Some people who deny still to this day that climate change is real, right?
Yeah. So that is the main issue. Like the change in the climate change is an issue because of the fact that in our schools we know how to study science. Okay, so you study chemistry, but nobody, I don't know, I was not trained to communicate, what exactly is CO3 or what is this chemical compound and how it relates to daily life of ours. So, and I don't know if in schools in your country they do or not, but it's very important for a student to really kind of bridge that gap and understand how I can communicate these concepts.
Definitely, because just having the academic knowledge won't bring us far together, right?
Yes, I think that, no, I mean, I will agree that academic knowledge is very important, but it's not everything else. It's not 100%. So it trains you for 30%. And that's very important because it helps you start. You always need a launch pad. But once you are launched, you have to gain experiences and other skills. And it's completely on yourself, completely based on you.
Definitely. So what would you say that you like most about your job?
In my job, I like the fact that I can, I'm working on a interesting, well, every work, like when the people do, they feel that are interesting, but something I like is that it maintains my curiosity. So today, if there is sea coastal flooding in one city in Mauritius, it could be very similar in India, it could be China, it could be Germany. So all these places, it's just floods, but it's happening everywhere. It's kind of my curiosity of how widespread these issues are. So that it keeps me alive because I'm in touch with the latest things happening. I can communicate with people. So I met a person who just came to China from Germany, and I was able to connect with him talking about, oh, you had floods in your country, is your family all right? I think that brings you, makes you an aware person as well. And that's fantastic for me because I need that for my research, and it builds my personality as well to communicate with people from different backgrounds.
That's quite interesting. And what would you say that you like least about your job?
Well, the least would be it's, you see, I cannot work alone, and the work I have here is I have to be very independent. So I have to sit there, do my own research, like so. The thing which I don't like, that I'm a very group person, and here I'm not able to work within a group.
Oh,
And so for me to work with a psychologist, to work with a sociologist, to work with scientists, and that makes me alive. I feel very much connected to because I always wanted to be multidisciplinary. So currently I do not have that at the moment. I am very much doing my own, which is also good because I'm very much focused, but still I feel like it's something missing that kind of bothers me in the current job I have.
but surely there's scope for that later on, right?
Yeah, I've been applying for, there is always scope to work. Now everything has become virtually, so you can connect with people from somewhere else, to send an email and see what the other opportunities come up. So yes, there's always hope to change, from one direction to another, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Right. And like you mentioned earlier, you got a job in Shanghai during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
how has COVID-19 affected your field of work?
It has tremendously, because that's the reason I couldn't go back home. And there was, of course, for the first time during the pandemic, I realized the importance of talking about depression and mental health. And so that I realized that these are affecting me, because I was writing my thesis during the lockdown in China, where all over the world was thinking what's going on. But then it was very strict here. It was unknown. And so the main effect for me was on my own mental health. And that was tremendous. And but of course, getting a job during the pandemic, I had to prepare for it from 2 years ago, because I was looking for a job anyway. So I was building connections. And eventually what happened is that connection, that networking, that communication helped even during the pandemic. So I think communication is the key thing. It can actually help you to get a job, to find your way out, the more you communicate and talk. And that helped a lot during the pandemic as well.
So has the restrictions that the pandemic brought impacted the way you do your job or the field in itself in any way?
So for my work, I have to do a lot of field work. So I have to, go to the mud and collect some samples. And, I love doing field work. And also there were a lot of conferences which goes on. And so there was a conference in Istanbul. I was supposed to go there to meet people, travel around, meet my family and everything. So the Oz communication, physical communication was completely stopped. There was, that was kind of physical, but then mentally was there as well. Financially, also there was an issue, because there was cut in my salary, cut in my funding of my research, and so these issues were eventually hurting my mental ability to perform my research, and very discouraging, because there were moments when I thought that I should not do this, and maybe I can go back home and try to find something else.
So, but eventually you stuck out with it, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm still here. And eventually, and of course, friends, they help. Again, communicating was very helpful to really come out and say that, hey, I'm having problem with this and this. I feel very depressed and this and that. And so there were people, friends, who helped to cope up with that situation. And because everything became virtual, people became more kind, I think. So you shoot an email, if previously people would respond because of their busy life, suddenly it's much more connected, it's much more, I feel like I write an email to a professor, can we have a Zoom call to talk about something? He or she was ready for it. And so I found a new way to connect and communicate. And for me, I'm repeating this thing many times, but communication has been the key of anything in my life. I've never applied for a job as a newspaper or website. Whatever job I got was from personal connection, from talking about it, I've actually built my own job rather than applying for an application for it.
I think that's something extremely important that's often overlooked. Like, don't necessarily go job hunt, look for advertisements and all, but
Yeah.
build connections. Yeah, that's true. So what kind of advice would you give to someone, a young student who's interested in your field of work?
I would very much advise to connect with me. I'm very open to people to connect. And of course, whatever interest you have, try to link it with the society, see how you can help people. I think that you will eventually, if you're in high school, you don't need to, if you're 16, 17, you don't need to get a job immediately. If you're getting into university, you don't have to get a job immediately. And recruiters, when you are applying for a job these days, they really see how much social or contribution you have made during the process of your education. And so make sure that that even if you're a geographer or a sociologist or a psychologist, get hands-on experience right in the beginning. So start working with people who are in your field, in your city, and see how you can get involved at a very early stage.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That was brilliant. So, Dhritiraj, thank you for doing this.
Thank you,
Thank you
Naisam.
for participating with us. I'm sure that
My pleasure.
our students here will find this very insightful for those who are interested in this particular career. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. All right.